Okay, attempt number 5. I think this will be the attempt that works. These are the things you guys don't see, the behind the scenes, the cinematography, the great attempt to make sure this thing runs, as I often fail to hit the start button, or the microphones don't work, or something like that. Whatever, here we go. January 15th training. Today's features and focuses on a little, I haven't done this tile in a while, but post-activation potentiation type work. So basically what I did was, it's super cold out. It's like minus 15 degrees. So even my garage is freezing. And I can't back my truck out to do jumps off of it. I can't do any of that fun stuff. And so there's a method, and I don't really want to call it like a unique method, because everything in a sense is some sort of sequential benefit to the next. So basically what I mean by that is, when you do an exercise, that exercise always has an impact on the next exercise, and the next exercise has an impact on the next. And like, thinking about the research and the history of all this, about 9 years ago, it became super popular, called post-activation potentiation. Basically, you do an exercise, and it increases the output of the next exercise. And there is some debate why or why not that happens. It has to do with motor unit recruitment and the ease of recruitment possibly, and calcium sensitivity. Basically what happens is, when you try really hard and you produce lots of force, calcium gets sequestered into the muscles, and that creates the contraction. And theoretically there might be some greater sensitivity if you do a really forceful output first, and then you follow that up with a speed output. And the speed output might get some benefit from the forceful output, because if the residual calcium, there's some theories behind it, calcium sensitivity, possibly ease of motor unit recruitment, so lowering the threshold from the central command center, your brain, down to the muscles, whatever, not here nor there. The method's pretty simple. Do something heavy, do something fast, and at a minimum, at a bare minimum, at least you're training beneficial qualities, the ability to produce lots of force and the ability to produce force really fast. So I did this setup where I had my chain belt squat machine set up, my chain squat, and I, for about 2 to 3 seconds, drove into the ground as hard as I can for 2 sets. I measured my force output, and then I went and did a trap bar jump with 95 pounds as high as I can. Now, I normally probably would do a body weight jump, but ceilings are kind of low, and so I didn't have any room for that. I went back and forth about 6 to 7 total times. Now, what I've found personally is the first rep of my trap bar jump that I do is always my worst rep. I do something really heavy, I wait, 2 minutes basically, and then maybe a little bit less. And then I go and do my trap bar jump, as I point to it over here. And the first rep, I'm never really quite ready to try as hard as I can. It's always the second rep that's the best. So I do about it's probably more than 2, 3 to 5 reps paired with that isometric belt squat. Now, what's interesting is the isometric belt squat, you get feedback on it, so you see how hard you are trying. And with that, you see how much force you're producing. And so in some of the actual isometrics I'm doing here, excluding my body weight, so I've already subtracted it, I'm lifting 900 pounds. I think it's 4,125 newtons was the output measured on that. And then to convert it into pounds, it's divided by 9.81, which puts it in kilograms, and you multiply that by 2.205. That puts it back into pounds for conversion nerds, basically 900 pounds. I did that. By the way, that brings up a whole nother can of worms. Like, is that enough force to be strong enough? When people talk about strength, what is strength? Is it how much force you can produce? Well, in that position, I'm producing 900 pounds, and I sure can't squat 900 pounds. Why? Because my back is probably a massive limiting factor, and a whole other smorgasbord of reasons, stability, all this other stuff. So from a pure force standpoint, is that a superior method? Maybe. There could be a good argument for that, and that's one of my beliefs maybe I'll share somewhere down the line, is some of the misconceptions and debates we have around this stuff. So basically, I paired that with my jumps, and I used the Vitruve linear encoder, linear measurement, bar speed measurement device. It looks like that. It attaches to the bar, to a string. See how fast I could, how fast I can move the bar during my jumps. And then once I kind of hit a point of plateauing, that was basically 6 sets, I went upstairs and did a variety of other jumps because I was finally warmed up in this freezing cold weather. Took advantage of it, didn't really want to get warmed up there. So then I did my jumps, and I do try to aim for more, this is kind of a philosophy of mine. If I have to put all my volume or the majority of my volume into a given basket of exercises, I always want to air it towards the movement. And so in this case, I did a lot more jumps than lifting, and I typically do that. And that's my philosophy, that's part of my philosophy, which has changed quite a bit. I'd say about 65% of my total volume comes from movement like exercises. After that, I did these sprints downstairs. I call them bursty sprints, where I sprint fast for like 3 steps and take a break, fast for 3 steps. And I paired those with my isometrics on the bands, the banded isometrics, the split squat lunge. That one exercise I'm telling you guys I need to keep adding back in, so keep myself honest there. And I did about 6 rounds of that, probably 6 total rounds. I don't write all my volumes down. I don't really track the loading a ton on those kind of things. My big indicator of progress is I've lifted enough. I know when I'm doing more work. I know when I'm doing more intense work. I can associate that with the fatigue levels I have, and the maximal outputs on the court, are they getting better? And that's the ultimate goal. I've spent a lot of my life training stuff, and you train and train and train, and your weight room numbers go up, and you spend all this time hyper concerned about the weight room and these metrics, and am I going to do everything I possibly can to get stronger in a given exercise just for it to not translate in the slightest to the court? Versus when I use the court as an anchor point, how high am I jumping, how well am I jumping, how consistent am I jumping, the peaks and troughs, are my peaks higher, my troughs higher, is my average higher, and movement as a whole. I can tell when I'm moving better. I played college basketball, not at a high level, Division III, but I still played. And in doing so, you have a lot of years of learning how your body moves. And I'm at the age where I have the internal ability to do that. Now, there's a lot of young athletes who don't have that. They don't know. They haven't had enough time training, experience reflecting on their training. So a lot of my athletes, I recommend journaling or writing down what they've done, not just because it's a good way to reflect on progress, but it helps them become an automative learner. They start to analyze and assess patterns of things that make them feel better, that make them feel worse. And then they can take that and apply that to them, because ultimately we are all different people. I've heard so many stories of certain people who lift a certain way, who do a certain thing, and they seem to get lots of benefit from it. Who am I to argue with that? But if we don't try and understand some key principles around what's helping us, and maybe exercise selection and pattern recognition, we might make the mistake of thinking it's one thing versus the other. And so that's why it is important to actually reflect on your training and not just say, oh, you know, I felt really strong and I did a strong lift, and so I'm stronger. And the reality is you're not actually producing any more force during sporting movement. So are you really stronger? I don't know. It's a good debate. So that basically summed up the training, right? So I had the post-activation potentiation-like stuff, the sprints, the isometrics. It was a pretty demanding day. It was a good day. And then I have some stuff I want to share with you guys tomorrow about training around being sick and being ill and what that's like. I'm personally right now coming off a little bit of a sickness. I don't know why I put in quotations. It was pretty bad. Short-lived, but bad. And I want to talk a little bit about the mindset of that. But I'll do that next video and kind of discuss some of those aspects of training around, you know, obstacles. We'll call it that. Whether it's travel, sickness, injury even, just not feeling great. There's some really good options you can do to make something out of nothing. And sometimes nothing is okay for that something, and that's just fine as well. So I'll keep it there for today, and then I'll share with you guys tomorrow what's going on with the other stuff. As always, thank you. And I know this is a little more short-lived and not as detailed as the previous ones, because I'm a little bit still under the weather and getting over some stuff. I wanted to make this video to share with you all here. I appreciate the support. As always, thanks and take care.